play stupid games, win stupid prizes, and Don Lemon is learning that lesson today. Ex-CNN host Don Lemon was arrested in connection with Minneapolis church storming, and he is contesting that, saying that he is within his First Amendment rights. I'd like to remind everybody that the First Amendment rights are to protect us from the government. They do not protect you from storming a place of peaceful worship because you think someone in there might be in ICE. Churches are private property. You are not allowed to storm private property and disrupt peaceful worship. The question that I would have for Don Lemon is, Don Lemon, would you storm a synagogue? The answer would be no. Would you storm a mosque? The answer would be no. Would you storm a temple? The answer would be no. And why? Why would Don Lemon not storm a temple? Why wouldn't he storm a mosque? Why wouldn't he storm a synagogue? Because he respects those as places of worship. Don Lemon, no matter what you think about ICE, and I certainly do not agree with everything that ICE is doing right now, but no matter what you believe, Don Lemon is in the wrong. You cannot, as a journalist of 30 years, walk into a church in the middle of worship and decide to protest. It is illegal in most cases, and it is morally wrong. And what I want to do today is show you guys that he actually planned this. Don Lemon knew this. I have video of his friend. We have video of him saying he planned this. He knew this was going to happen. This he is not absolved from the responsibility. And I also want to read to you the letter from his attorney. So let's read this letter from his attorney first, and then we will get into the video. Statement from Abby Lowell, attorney for Don Lemon. Don Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents last night in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Awards. Don has been a journalist for 30 years. 30 years. And you don't know that you can't go into a church and protest? How come you haven't done that before? And his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he had always done. It's very different. You cannot go into a church while people are worshiping and decide to disrupt their peaceful worship. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role it is to shine light on truth and hold those in power accountable. The First Amendment exists to protect Americans from the government. There is no more important time for people like Don to be doing this work. Instead of investigating the federal agents who killed two peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest, and that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. I wholeheartedly disagree. And the reason is that Don Lemon is a world-renowned journalist, whether you like him or not. And he is setting a very dangerous precedent to go into churches as a journalist and to disrupt them because you don't like their potential political beliefs. That is a dangerous precedent to set, that it is okay for people to go into churches and disrupt people while they're worshiping. This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Now, listen, I 100% agree with her. I 100% believe that this is part of the distraction. The problem is that this is a very illegal distraction. You cannot go into a church that is private property, disrupt worship services, prevent people from entering and exiting, ignoring a lawful request to leave, which we will see that the pastor actually asked them to leave and they said no, you cannot do that. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. Fine, let him. Let's get into the video that I wanted to share with you guys. Where we see that Don Lemon actually planned this protest. Okay. So we will see where he planned this. Now, this is an interview with one of his friends, and one of his friends is going to tell you.
And the day after, I had private conversations with him. He wouldn't mind me saying this. He was told by a couple of the protesters that they were going to be in a church. He decided to go in there. I don't think I would use the terminology as Don Lemon storming the church, but he walked into the church knowing that it was going to happen.
That's really
knowing that it was going to happen. He made the decision to go into a church and disrupt worship as a journalist, as a world-renowned 30-year journalist, as his attorney told us.
important. He knew what was going to happen. This is confirmed. Question is, well, what was going to happen?
We both agree that no, you shouldn't be protesting in a religious sanctuary. Now, I don't think it's World
What
War
did you say to Don about that? Did you tell him that?
Yeah, I talked to him and I said, first of all, I said, be careful because there's a lot of people out there that want to get you. There's a lot of people out there that want to throw you in jail. Please be careful.
So you knew ahead of time?
What do you mean? No, I did not know ahead of
Okay.
time. After I saw the videos that Don Lemon put out and after it was all over the news that day that he put it out is when I had a private conversation with him. And I asked him, number one, because he's my friend, I said, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm doing fine. And then he described to me really pretty much what he pretty much said.
You see how he skipped over the question. So it's very obvious if you tell someone to be careful, it's because you know they're about to do something that is illegal. So he says, I told Don Lemon to be careful. And then Brian asks him, the guy with the black hair, asked him, wait a minute, you knew he told you beforehand that he was going to go in, and his Don Lemon's friend here in the hat goes, no, I didn't know. When do you tell someone to be careful? Do you tell them to be careful after they're about to go in and protest a church or before? So Don Lemon knew, and there's even more evidence of this.
In a couple other interviews, which was, I got into Minneapolis that morning. I was told by a few people on the ground that they were going to be protesting in this church. I walked in there and I started recording. And that's what he did. And I think he's been pretty, and I believe him. And that I think he's been pretty consistent on that.
He recorded meeting with the protesters, talking about the plan. He went to great lengths to prevent word from getting out that they were going to the church so that this event could occur.
They're getting the operation together. Again, this is an operation that is secret, that they invited folks out. Can't tell you what is going to happen, but you're going to watch it live unfold here on the Don Lemon Show.
So you're saying he didn't know that they were going to stop a church service?
I don't know if he knew whether the service was going to be stopped.
This is such word salad and mental gymnastics. Of course you knew. And we're going to see a video in a few minutes where he goes, we can't go in there, right? We can't go in there. Knowing that there is a service happening. He absolutely knew.
Or not.
What did he think was going to happen? They were going to disrupt a church service, which means you're preventing the service from being able to continue. I'm just shocked that he would think it would be a good idea to do that. Did you ask him about that? Like, how could you meet up with this group, know these plans, and think we're going to go shut down a church service and go along with it and be smiling through the whole thing? And then on the way out, be like, well, that was interesting to watch.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch.
And just be totally fine.
I would not. I can tell you that if I was in a service and I saw something like that happen, I would take out my phone and probably record.
This is the most irrelevant thing. There's a very massive difference between going into a church to worship and going into a church to protest. This is the most irrelevant example. And that's because everyone knows this is wrong.
This is amazing to me. What is your point in saying that? Well, I would record if I saw that, but that's not what Don Lemon was doing. He met up with the group, kept the operation, as he called it, secret, and confronted people himself. Wait a minute.
Correct. We have video of Don Lemon speaking to the pastor and saying, "Are you an ICE agent?" Because that was the premise for which they were going into this church, is that they believed that the pastor of this church was an ICE agent. You cannot assault someone because of their job. You cannot do that. That is illegal. You cannot discriminate against people because of the work that they do. Because that they work for a government agency does not mean you can walk into a church and disrupt them. This is a dangerous precedent to set.
Can we just examine that? So you're saying, so you're comparing what Don Lemon did to a person attending the service taking out their phone? Or
No.
What's your point?
No, I'm just saying that I was just going to get to that. I was saying if I was in a church and that happened, I would take out my phone and record.
If that's not your point, then why are you saying it?
Don Lemon found out before it happened by a few people that they were going to be in there and they were going to be protesting. I think maybe the mistake that he made was not necessarily recording what was taking place, but maybe doing interviews in there. I think it was a little bit uncomfortable. Clearly,
His mistake was going in, because the legality lies in walking into a church in a place of worship and then you recorded it, that makes you complicit. You're actually condoning this. And I've said this before. Journalists do have a responsibility. What Don Lemon knows is that because he has a large platform, he has upped the ante. So the level at which people were going to protest is heightened. The emotionality of it is heightened because Don Lemon is there, because of who he is. Because of who he is. So pretending that his presence did not actually escalate the situation is ignorance. It did. And then for him to go in there and say, you know what? I'm going to walk in here and I'm going to interview people. You're part of the disruption.
The
Pastor did
mistake
not
was
want
going into the church service with a mob to shut down the service.
taking place, but maybe doing interviews in there. I think it was a little bit uncomfortable. Clearly, the
The
pastor did
mistake
not
was
want
going into the church service with a mob to shut down the service.
that was not Don Lemon's intention. He was there just to record. He might have thought that there was going to be a protest, which he did, but that was not Don
He
Lemon.
taught in the car on the way. He's talking about the importance of making people uncomfortable and disrupting them, taking it to them in undisclosed ways, surprising them, and imposing it upon them.
Look, hugging his kid. And, you know, I've imagined it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But that's what really, careful, please.
So this is so disgusting. What he's saying is, I don't care that these people are in the middle of church service. I don't care that these people are actually maybe anti-ICE, right? Because just because someone is sitting in a church where the pastor is potentially an ICE agent doesn't mean that they agree with everything that the government's doing. So to punish the parishioners for doing what they're allowed to do on a Sunday, Don Lemon is saying, well, it's uncomfortable for them, but it's uncomfortable for everybody else. This is so snarky and arrogant, and I'm glad that this is on television. You cannot do this. You cannot.
Really slippery. Not kidding. But it's uncomfortable and, you know, I've imagined it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But that's what really, careful, please, really slippery. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. And so
protesting is about going into people's churches and making them feel uncomfortable because you don't like what the government is doing. No. I'm glad he's arrested. I'm sorry I am.
You're really telling me that he didn't know that he knew this was going to happen. He spells that out. You spoke to him.
As I said, he knew that there was going to be a protest. Sure.
But earlier he agreed that disrupting a church service is wrong.
Yes, at the very beginning of this broadcast, he goes, I think we can both agree that going into a church service and disrupting it is wrong. And then he does mental gymnastics to justify Don Lemon's behavior.
So I think we agree for the most part on the church, right? We both agree that, no, you shouldn't be protesting in a religious sanctuary.
So he's walking a fine line here.
Yeah, I don't think he did
You
anything
don't think it
else
was wrong to walk into that church service?
Well, what do you mean by wrong? Are we talking about the law?
To interfere.
Okay, whenever someone says, what do you mean by wrong? They know that it's wrong. Just so you guys know, what do you mean by wrong? Again, I will ask the same question because this is my tip for anytime someone has comments to make about Christianity. I ask them if they have the same feeling about Islam or Judaism, because actually a lot of what's in the Torah is similar to the Old Testament in the Bible, and what a lot of what's in the Quran. And for example, just randomly, marriage, right? People are they hate Christianity for that, but a lot of actually other religious groups, not that they're the same, right, believe the same thing, but people don't have the same vitriol that they do towards Christianity. So yes, it's wrong. So I would ask him, hey, sir, is it okay to go into a mosque?
For people's freedom of religion.
Yeah, I don't think Don Lemon was doing that. I think the protesters were.
This is just the beginning of this clandestine operation that they're doing here because of some inside information that they got. So this is going to be very interesting. I don't think we can go inside, right?
I don't think we can go inside, right? And listen to his cameraman.
No.
No. We can't. Exactly. We can't go inside. He knew that this was wrong, and this video will be shown in court, and he will have, be sanctioned to whatever degree the judge decides. But this is the point where he is guilty.
No, we can stand outside.
We're here to worship Jesus. That's why we're here. Yeah.
We're here to worship Jesus. That's all we're doing.
You all up in this man's face.
I don't think Don Lemon was doing that, as I said.
And you don't think he was participating? So walking into the church with the group doesn't make you a protester. You're only a protester if you join in the chant. Is that the logic? Even if they say, yes, you're on our team, even if he clarifies, I'm on your team.
No, man, dude, I'm not here.
Whose team are you on?
Come on, man. This is Don Lemon.
All right, man.
All right. Well,
No, you have to just say the chants. Otherwise, your mere presence in the church doesn't qualify. What about if you were in January 6th, if you were just in the Capitol?
No, he was.
Precisely. And this is where the double standard lies. This is excellent comparison. And this is what I liken this to. So on January 6th, was it okay to just stand in the Capitol if you were just there recording and going in with people? No, they would have said, you're guilty. You're taking over the government. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's the pure hypocrisy of it all.
Wasn't protesting. He took out his phone. He was recording what took place, as any good journalist would do. He asked the pastor a few questions, and if he didn't leave when he was asked to leave, which I'm not sure if that's true or not.
He did not leave when he was asked to leave.
Then you
didn't. You see it on camera.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked if you actually would also leave.
He said, I would like you to leave now.
Yes. Do you see? And the pastor was actually kind enough to answer a question and then say, you need to leave. And Don Lemon doesn't leave.
Yeah, he said, well, I have every right to be here.
He said, I'm a Christian. And listen, that's why I said maybe you can make the argument it could be trespassing, right? There are churchgoers that were interrupted. Okay.
So tell me what a regular churchgoer does, because this is like, again, this idea that because I'm a Christian, I can be in your church. Well, Christians in the church are just sitting there, they're reading. Don Lemon, where's your Bible? It's a church. Where's your Bible? Why do you need a microphone and a cameraman in church? This is it's ridiculous.
Okay, sorry that happened. They'll be able to bring their kids back to church next week.
It's amazing how quickly he just dismisses the psychological impact on everyone in that service.
Exactly. Well, they'll be able to bring their kids back to church next week. And I'm sorry, but you cannot come into this country illegally. I'm sorry, but I'm not putting myself in a vehicle and driving over, potentially even pretending like I'm driving over an ICE agent. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to. I have a hard time with this. I'm the party of empathy and compassion, but my empathy and compassion runs out if you don't share my political beliefs. No. It's absolutely wrong. And the way that this is their reaction to everything. This is the left's reaction. Well, because they're not, I don't think they have my viewpoint. Their lives don't matter. That's exactly the viewpoint of the left. And you see it here and the snarkiness of it. Let's listen.
It's amazing how quickly he just
that were interrupted. Okay. Sorry that happened. They'll be able to bring their kids back to church next week.
It's amazing how quickly he just dismisses the psychological impact on everyone in that service. I mean, you saw the images, surely, of the kid cowering, multiple people cowering. I mean, I could understand how that could be a traumatic experience, right?
I saw a child that was crying in a still shot picture.
You have so much.
No empathy. And there is a phenomenon that's happening where we are actually becoming less empathetic because we are putting our empathy in one place, and you do run out of empathy. And so you have to, because we are conserving our empathy, it becomes, well, no, children don't, well, we know they don't believe in children having empathy because they think it's okay to kill children in the womb. So we know that they don't care. And they also think that it's okay for children to be, a lot of these people are okay with children being, touched and all that stuff. So we know that. But you see how cold and harsh he is around American citizens, but not parents who willingly took their children to a country knowing that it was illegal and are suffering the consequences of it.
Compassion for trans individuals and trans children. But
I have compassion
now it's like, get tough, deal with it, kid.
No, I didn't say that. Oh, you're putting words in my mouth.
Okay. All right.
I didn't say that. If a child was traumatized by some people yelling in church, because that's really what happened, I'm pretty confident that child will be okay and it won't scar him for the rest.
Are you a psychologist? I'm just curious.
Rest of his life when he was in church with his family, and some people were breaking the law, I would assume, and
they were breaking the law, like Don Lemon.
Yelling out some chants, say her name, Renee Good. I would imagine some children were a little scared. And I am
You
sorry
think
that
they're
that
going to be
happened.
able to go back to church next Sunday just fine? You just
Eventually, I'm sure they will. Eventually, I'm sure they will. I don't think they're going to be
so no
scarred for
worries.
life.
Then. Okay.
No, I didn't say no worries, but I care more about a child that is going to grow up without a mom. I care more about fathers and mothers that are physically assaulted, that are being dragged outside their vehicles.
It sounds to me like he's trying to say at the end of the day, there are stakes that are higher than their ability to worship, therefore somewhat justified. I'm not saying it's right.
I feel more.
But we knew this was the case because during COVID, they said, you don't have a right to worship because you're going to kill your grandmother. So tell me when is it appropriate to kill someone and when it's not? When is it appropriate to psychologically damage someone and when is it not? Right? Because remember during COVID, it was inappropriate for Christians to worship, right? Because we were so scared of the consequences of that. But now he's saying, "Oh, it's fine. It's fine. We don't care if you're disrupted in your worship. We don't care. It's irrelevant."
More about kids.
This is a dangerous game to play, man. Just to say, well, this bad thing is happening, therefore that justifies this bad thing because that bad thing is worse.
I have no problem with ICE agents finding bad people and putting them in custody and deporting them. I think most of America agrees with that. I do have a problem with breaking the law and not abiding by our Constitution. And yes, I think that is far
Which
more
is what they
serious.
did in the church. They broke the law and broke constitutional.
Exactly. They broke constitutional law. They broke constitutional law. That's what I was trying to say earlier when they said, "Oh, you cannot worship because of COVID," but you guys are okay with that. See, you're okay with that in certain situations. People are okay with that in certain situations when it allows them, but they were upset with January 6th. So remember, during COVID, it was appropriate to shut down churches. Now it's appropriate to protest in churches, both of which are constitutionally inappropriate and unlawful. But all of a sudden, we care about the Constitution when it was January 6th.
I understand they did.
The Constitution.
I understand they did, which is what I said to start this show, that if they're arrested, I have no problem with that. Understand they might have broken the FACE Act. I've been very consistent on that.
See, we're going to stop this right here. I understand if they broke the law, they're going to be arrested. Yes. And Don Lemon did the same thing. And that's why he is arrested. He knew, he planned it, he made a mistake, and now he's suffering the consequences.